This week, we're talking about creation myths, finding a key point to start on when creating your own, and how to use inspirations from other sources to inform your own stories. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello and welcome to another episode of the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. This is the podcast brought to you in partnership with The Dice Dungeon, your one-stop shop for premium D&D dice, both metal and resin, as well as D&D books. And actually, when I say premium, we don't just mean the metal dice either. It is a brand new set that I have in my possession, which is resin, and yet I think... I don't want Ben and Dave to hurt me, but I think might be prettier than any of the metal sets that I own. I'll tell you more about it later. If you want to get some dice or maybe the new Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, you can by jumping over to Dice Dungeon's website. There's a link in the description below, and you can use the code WeSpeakCommon for 10% off your entire order. The show's also brought to you in partnership with Describe. That's DSCRYB. Describe are the place to go if you're not very good at creative writing. It's fine. Not everybody can be. Hell knows. I can't write anything if I haven't had a coffee or two. If you want to get your homebrew world sounding and smelling and looking beautiful with some brilliant creative text, then Describe offers you it from creative professional writers. They've got descriptions for scenes, locations, and spells, and over 1,500 of them, with them growing every single week. You can get a whole load of them for free right now by heading to the link in the description below. You can get access to all of them and the ever-expanding with collection with a monthly membership, 10% off with the code common on checkout every single month. I should also mention the beautiful patrons on Patreon. It's always a tongue twister. They support the show directly and mean that when things go wrong, I can fix them. For example, I've had a lot of problems with my gear recently, which now, thankfully, are all fixed. So if you are a Patreon or a patron of the Patreon, you are a beautiful human being. You get access to loads of stuff like DM guides that I've written for different campaigns. I think we now have, there's a Tomb of Annihilation one out that's actually free for anybody to go and grab. There's now my notes from the Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign that I ran that's out, and for the Halloween event Strahd Must Die Tonight. You can grab those on the Patreon, as well as a new class, the Sorcerer, and loads of other stuff. And of course you get access to the Discord server where we sit and chat about D&D and other things all the time. If you want to get involved and support the show directly, links in the description as always, and if not, just sharing the podcast always helps. Cool. It gets longer every single week, so I apologize, but I am joined today again, returning to the show, by my good friend James.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We've had one hell of a weekend as far as it comes to D&D.
Hell is the right word as well. Oh my God. It's been intense. So we did, what are we thinking, potentially the penultimate session, maybe the one before the penultimate session of Baldur's Gate?
Pretty much.
So we've been playing for over a year now, and that's not due to the fact that it's like been massively expanded. I mean, it has got a lot of content in there, but we're just really shit at scheduling games. We've now got to the point where, minor spoilers for Descent of Avernus, we've got like one of the MacGuffins, because we ignored one of them, to sort of finish the quest line. So it's all coming to a head.
Yeah, and it only took like nearly everybody dying.
Honestly, though, I think I've been thinking about this because we played the session on Friday night, and it's now Sunday when we're recording, and I have been reeling on it ever since, even considering that we played Tomb last night as well. I'm still thinking about Descent. I cannot stop thinking about it. I think it might be single-handedly the best session of D&D I have been a player in.
Oh, stop it. You're making me blush, Ben.
But this is the thing. You know me. I don't just give out compliments for no reason. So I genuinely was blown away by that session. I mean, we fought a demon lord.
Yep, that's the one.
And I mean, we even had big character development moments. I achieved pretty much. Well, I mean, my overall goal for the campaign as a character has had stages to it. So I've achieved the second stage out of 3 in that goal, and that was a beautiful moment for me. We experienced major character development in all of us. We're only a party of 3 as well, so it's so
that has
good.
helped. There's only 3 of you, so it's quite close relationships.
Do you know what though? I actually think that 3 members in a party is the best number. I know that a lot of like traditionally it's 4, isn't it? But I think that 3 is perfect because you get enough breathing room for everyone. And if all of the players are comfortable with talking, then that leaves a lot of room for inter-party relationships. But you also never have the problem where like 2 people want to do one thing and 2 people want to do another. There's always a way to get out. Like you can vote on it and it has to go one way or the other.
That and combat happens a lot quicker.
Oh god, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm absolutely pumped, and I've been thinking about what my character's going to do if he survives, and I've started to put a plan together. I think I've got a couple of different ideas, so we'll have to talk about it. But yeah, we're really close to finishing that.
So close.
How's it been for you? Are you like, how do you feel now that you know that we're like mere sessions away from finishing?
Anxious is the only word to describe it, because I feel like we've now culminated, and now where do I take it?
Yeah. I think this is a struggle, and I think we should probably do an episode on this another time. I think you and I are probably the 2 out of the group that are in the best position to talk about it. But what do you do when a campaign ends and you want to keep going? Because I mean, you can string campaigns together. That's the obvious answer, but the fact that we both have run adventures that end around have ended between the 8 to 13 level, and people are like, oh, I want to keep going. It's like, well, where do you go from there? We should do an episode on that, because I think that's tricky, like working out how to top the climax of the first arc. What would be the first arc,
especially some of the way the adventures end as well. I mean, the end of Descent, you do something pretty momentous.
Yeah, exactly. Like Waterdeep Dragon Heist is a little bit easier, although for you guys, you all kind of went into an institutionalized life. You're all part of groups and things now.
We're all domesticated now.
But I think that's good for that adventure, because I can just pull you all back together at some point when like the world needs you.
Oh, superheroes.
Yeah, literally. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, we should talk about that sometime. And of course, we had Tomb of Annihilation last night.
Yes.
And we had another character death.
Yep, the obituary is now 2 characters long.
For how many sessions?
It's either 11 or 12.
That's not bad going, you know.
No,
I think that's pretty good.
I think session 6 was the first one. So if we're keeping up this pace, session 17, 18 will be the next one.
Okay, I will plan accordingly.
I'm just dreading the day that literally ends up where there's one of us will be the one original party member left, and it'll just be that person's going to be broken.
I actually kind of want that to happen, although we've got twins in the party, and I don't know. Ronan is poisoned at the moment, using some of the poison rules that I theorized and wrote during this podcast, and he's doing all right. He's on like level, I think he's on level 2 of poison.
Yeah.
So he basically, the way it works, just to write it down for you, is that when you get the poison condition, if you fail the con save to be poisoned by like a significant amount, if it's depending on what the DC is, like 5 or more, you then gain the like poisoned condition where you are on a you have to keep rolling to try and fight the toxins off each day.
Oh.
And then it's kind of like exhaustion, but there's different levels and
Not
different number
of
of levels.
I kind of want to see what happens when one of the twins dies.
Yeah, me too. But like, I have to live with Phoebe, and I'm worried that it's going to destroy her. And I don't want Phoebe to die just yet. Well, here's the thing: they both have something interesting going on about them, and I kind of want some of that to come to light before one of them dies, if they die. So
We'll see what
I
the
don't know.
jungles think about that, though, Ben.
The other thing as well is that when you get to the final fight, the end, I want at least one of you, maybe. Well, no, I want at least two of you to make it out. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. It's a
We'll
really
see.
tough fight.
We'll power ourselves up. We will become gods of the jungle, Ben.
That would be good. That'd be very good. Anyway, so yeah, lots going on. We've had a very big couple of days, and now we've got like 2 weeks before we can play D&D again, and it's gonna be a very long 2 weeks, but
we'll make it.
We'll make it work. So we're going to talk about creation myth today, and I pulled you in because I know that you're making a world. I don't know what stage. I know you're quite far in. I don't know what stage you're at right now. I am currently rebuilding and making 2.0 of my world. So we're both pretty knee deep in the world building community at this point.
Yeah.
I thought we'd be in a good position to talk about it. So just to go over, just to give you an idea of what was asked, because this is a topic suggestion from the Discord with the patrons. And it came from, hang on, where is it? Your face is in the way on Discord. I need to move you. Sorry. In the way, James.
That's me all over. Just in the way.
Treetop Potato said, I can't remember if the great name, I can't remember if you've done an episode on creation myths. I know you've talked about them somewhat, but not in depth. How do you make them, but also how do you use existing ones as inspiration? I think I'm kind of gutted. I think Joe and I did talk about this a little bit, but I'm kind of gutted we didn't talk about it in depth because Joe was very good at world building his own stuff. So
yeah,
I'll have to ask him next time he's around what he thinks about this too. But would you like to start and tell us where you begin and what you do?
Well, I started in the place of trying to start with the creation myth for the world and then go from there. But then I very quickly found that is too abstract and out there and doesn't really work, at least for me anyway. And so I've been thinking about just what do I do? And I've come up with an idea of, instead of coming up with a creation myth first, if I populate my world with the different societies and their different myths and different gods that they believe in, if I then find whatever common element they all have, from those common elements, I can then make whatever the inverted commas true creation myth is. So therefore, it's something that binds the whole world together, but something that different areas have interpreted differently.
Okay, yeah. So I'm quite similar. I have to have some sort of element in place already. So when I'm making a world, I need to know, for example, like, okay, it's a sphere and it has this many continents and it has these races, and it operates in this kind of way, you know, whether that's industrialized or very fantasy outback or whatever. And then I can take the general feel and make that into the myth. So like, I guess really what I do is like I make a snapshot of what I want the world to look at when the players are in it, and then I work back from there to write not only the, like, it's not just the creation myth, but the story and what's happened to lead up to that point.
Yeah.
Whereas starting from the beginning, because if I do that, I just don't have like anything to go on. I have to have something that I want there to be and then work out how it gets there.
Yeah, if as well, very much if you do start from nothing, even if you do then get something, you've then got to wrangle how everybody across the whole world believes that one thing. Which, as we can see, this taking inspiration from current creation myths. Wherever you go in the world, they're different.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. I always used to. So I'm going to talk specifically about like having gods create the world as a creation myth right now. I always used to think, oh, it's funny how in the fantasy games we play, there's a word for it. You'll probably know what it is because you're smart. You got a big brain.
Also teach Ari.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah, that too. That does help. Whereas I never paid attention in Ari. But when you believe in a pantheon that has more than one god, what is that called?
Polytheistic.
Thank you. So a lot of the D&D worlds, not just like Forgotten Realms or Eberron or wherever, Greyhawk, they're all polytheistic. Is that right?
Polytheistic. You don't have the A in there.
Theistic. I'm going to remember that now, and I'm going to start using that in everyday conversation. They're very polytheistic. So they have lots of different gods within one pantheon, and then they also have other pantheons. And I always thought, oh, how funny. Like, our world's not like that. And then I realized, yeah, it is. It is exactly like that.
Yeah, so like monotheism, which is that belief in one god, it's actually a pretty new thing.
So like Christianism is...
Yeah, so Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and obviously they're the big three in current day. That idea of one sole god is quite a new thing. And I think that's part of the reason a lot of D&D worlds have these polytheistic pantheons is because it gives it that sense of age. Because obviously we associate polytheistic pantheons like the ancient Greeks, the Romans, obviously Vikings, the Norse, and that really does give it an age. But there is a trap as well at the same time, because there's two different kind of polytheistic worship, and there's one where it's you just believe in your one god, and that is the one that you've got, which doesn't really make much sense for a D&D world where the gods are definitely a thing. But the way it should really be is that each person, whilst they might focus on a particular god, they acknowledge that the others exist, and perhaps at different times in their life or whatever job they're doing might go to that particular deity.
Yeah, and that always used to throw me as well, because I used to think, well, what about if it's clear that gods exist, like if it's common knowledge, which it is in, especially if you look at Forgotten Realms, if everybody knows they're real, then faith is a different kind of thing than in our world, where like if you look at Christianity, it's about having faith, right? That's how you worship. You have faith. You don't have proof, you have faith. But it's not like that in D&D. So how does that look, and like how does that alter the myth? And
so there is that degree of in order to get around that, if you make your gods mysterious, as in the people below just can't figure them out, and they're getting different answers at different times from the same god, that sort of sidelines that problem, because they should be something separate and not necessarily understandable. So I'm going to talk a bit about my world's creation myth, because it ties into gods and heavenly powers, and how I came up with that. So, and then I want to hear about yours. So I have the world of Ka, which has 4 continents and then a few other like archipelagos and things, and each of those continents are they are similar in the sense of their races. The races are kind of spread out across the world, but they all have their own different kind of cultures and societies. So, for example, Esteroth and Idria were once one continent that split, and Idria is the singular state of Idria. They are one big state, whereas Esteroth was the land of the free cities. So it was all separate cities that just sort of got on with each other, but they weren't beholden to each other until the Alliance came along. And then, of course, like the other continents are like completely different. They've got like different ways of doing things. But the pantheon is the same across the world because of the way I tied in like the main... what's the word? Like the main theme and focus of the campaign, which is set in Esteroth, is about the fact that the gods can change and anybody potentially could reach divinity. Yeah.
So I didn't want to make too big of a creation myth, but I wanted to use the fact that this was the theme and that people like might beseech the gods, because well, anyone can become a god at some point. But then I also had the convergence, which is that natural occurring alignment of the planes, which causes weird stuff to happen. So for me, I was like, well, the creation myth needs to tie into the fact that the gods now have this hierarchy. So in my world, there is the angelic hierarchy, which means that there is an actual phrase I've written. It is written in cosmic stone, as it were, that anyone can achieve divinity if the sum of their whole is, for the world or for others. Yeah. But that also means the subtext of that is that anyone can lose their divinity. And so I was like, well, okay, well, how does this come into place? Because why would these godly powers want to allow others to step in and take their place from them? Because they are not mortal. They can die, but they don't die of age. So why would they want to swap out? Why would they don't just get bored? Like, this is their thing.
Yeah.
So I have the who has come to be known, because he's kind of been like whitewashed out of history, the one true evil god. Terrible PR. He or they were they created the hierarchy as an attempt to become the all powerful above them all.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be in charge. And so I was like, well, okay, well, now the creation myth needs to involve something around the gods all creating an aspect of life. So my creation myth is that in the beginning, there was the sphere, the crystal sphere, and there were the gods. No one knows where the gods came from. And I think this is, for me, an important part, is that the creation myth doesn't need to be specific. People, and as you said, gods can be mysterious. People don't need to know where the gods came from, because they can't comprehend that. And the way I line that out in my brain is that, for example, if you look at Christianity, God is never ending, right? In that religion.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a beginning or an end. Well, we can't comprehend that, because for us, we have a beginning and end. We have birth and death. That's a very mortal thing. So that's kind of the theme I've gone for there. And each of the gods decided to create a world. So they all came together, they made a planet, and they were like, oh, this is our baby now. Let's do stuff with it. And they said, well, let's be fair. Everybody can make something. And that can be the thing that you've made, and we'll put it all into the pot. We'll stir it up. We'll see what happens. Literally. So they all made something. So some of them made people, some of them made dwarves, some of them made elves, some of them made laughter or light or love or whatever, death, destruction. They're a weird bunch. And so the evil god, he said, okay, well, my thing that I'm going to create is this rule that no matter what, anybody can come to our level, which means we can all lose our power. And then he just went around and started killing people. He's like, you're a god? Not anymore. You're a god? Not anymore. Which then formed the fight between all of the angelic beings, the celestials, which then in turn led to the creation of the Azamar, as one god stripped her divinity to create these secret agents. So my creation myth came from the fact that I knew that I wanted this rule in the world, and that I wanted everyone to follow it. And thankfully, it meant I got to take things like the Seldarine and the Elven Pantheon and use that in my world without having to write a whole new Elven Pantheon.
Yeah. I really like your that putting that impetus behind the conflict of they just don't want to lose the power they've got. I just think that's just right on the tee.
So I have it that there's, I can't remember how many gods I have. The pantheon as it stands is, I call it the higher divine. So they are the gods, and I think there's like 20 of them. There's quite a few of them, and underneath the gods, you have then the hierarchy of like devas, planars, angels, and that kind of thing. And in the reverse, the devils are, this is more about religion than creation myth now, but the devils and the like the archdevils, the dukes of the 9 layers, like Asmodeus, he's a god.
Yeah.
The archdukes, they're like high level angels. The devils are then like just devas and things like that's their kind of level amongst the infernal hierarchy, but they're still angels. They're still celestial beings. They're just a different breed of celestial being.
Yeah.
Because they're fiends. But yeah, so I knew I had this one piece that I wanted to focus on, and just built my creation myth around that. Now, what happens when the campaign in Esteroth ends and we play another campaign in Idria? I don't know. I mean, it will still be there. That is still the creation myth of the world, and the angelic hierarchy will still exist. But obviously, I'd have to pick a different theme to focus on, because this campaign focuses on that and the convergence.
Yeah.
So that, like, because they're kind of intertwined in the plot that you're running. So the next plot would have to focus. Maybe it'll focus on Idria's invasion of Esteroth, because that happened. But
I mean, I suppose you would just take it to that different cultural point of view, if you will, rather than looking at the point of view of Esteroth. It's the cultural point of view of Idria, which can either be, I suppose, survival in some sense of whatever happens at the end of this convergence, but also at the same time one of conquest, and you could have a matching one going on again of another god trying to do what the previous one had done, or even a person, like in Baldur's Gate, where that guy tries to become the new Bull. I think it's Bull.
yeah, the Ballspawn.
Yeah, tries to do
games.
something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, like I wanted to, and this I think is important, is that myth is, we call it creation myth, and I think myth is the key word. It's not necessarily known. Like it's talked about, but it's not necessarily like, oh, we know that this is exactly what happened. This is what we believe happened. And so when I look at because my pantheon is closely aligned to the myth, when I look at, like, okay, well, I've got my higher divine, but then the elves follow their pantheon, which is the Seldarine. Well, the Seldarine exists. That is a pantheon within the world, but it's not the higher divine.
Yeah.
And for example, the dwarves follow Moradin and the dwarven pantheon, which names escapes me right now. So they have those beliefs and they follow those. And so in following those, they have their own creation myths around, like, Corellian and moving through the world in a shapeless form and shedding off the Fae and the Eladrin and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they have their creation myth around their race, which could be true, could not be, depending on who you ask. But that then also kind of, it doesn't go against the creation myth of the world, but it also kind of doesn't exactly line up. So if you actually get in your brain of your character and you look at it from that point of view, you're like, well, which one's real? I don't really know. Are they both real? Are they both exaggerated? Have they been changed through the tellings? And you don't actually know, because if you did actually know, it takes away the mystery and it takes away the myth of it.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing as well. Your players should never, I don't think, know for certain how the world was created or what God is doing what or what they want. It should always have that element of mystery to it. Otherwise, the world just loses that little bit of sparkle.
Yeah, that mystery, I think, is the key word. Mystery and myth is what you want to focus on. So, tell me about your world, James.
Well, obviously, my creation myth got scrapped at one point to some degree. But essentially, my thinking is that in the beginning, as it were, and obviously, I love dragons. So essentially, there's two great cosmic dragons going about business, polar opposites, that sort of thing. And they get pretty bored and they basically create sort of lesser dragons underneath them. So like the gem dragons.
Can I point out, this is what I'm talking about. You've just said, okay, there's two dragons and they just create other dragons. We don't know how they create them. No. They just do. And that's the point.
But yeah, those are like, my thinking is kind of like the gem dragons. And then basically at that point, the universe gets made and the world gets made for obviously, like I said, whatever reason. And then they start to populate it with your mortal races and different creatures and things. And then essentially the evil side, if you will, then gets the idea of, I'm this great cosmic being, these people should all worship me, which then results in this great massive cosmic war between the two. But then the sort of the lower dragons basically band together to protect the mortal realm from those two and create then your chromatic dragons and your metallic ones underneath to help them do that. But all of this has absolutely no bearing or whatsoever on the people in the world, as they don't know this is going on.
Okay.
And each of the different races has their own different sort of pantheon and creation myth to go with that. But it is all basically a different version of how they've interpreted what's happened there. And none of them realise that these dragons are the gods. They're all wearing, you've got this idea of masks. So, Moradin, for example, would essentially be a mask of one of those dragons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And whilst he's Moradin in that pantheon, he might be. I'm trying to think of a suitable one from another religion, but can't off the top of my head. He'd be that to the elves, or the equivalent thing to the humans. Yeah. And so, in a sense, whilst they're constantly acting in the world, they are at the same time completely separate and very rarely actually involved at all.
This is so cool. I love this because I'm now, when you started to describe it, I was like, oh, so the dragons are actually like just they're gods. They're the gods. The dragons are the gods. Which is kind of what you're saying with like the masks and things.
Yeah.
But it's how I'd love to see two versions of your world. One where, like you say, they don't know the dragons are in charge, and then because does that then good and people fight them and like hunt them down and stuff, or is it different?
You're going to have to say that again because my Discord just died.
Oh no. No, what did you hear?
The two different versions of the world.
Right, okay, so it would be really cool to see two different versions of your world, because you've basically your dragons are your gods, right? And they play God for the other races by pretending to be from their race. So they have complete control over the world. Does that mean that from the perspective of the players, do the creature type dragons operate in the same way as written in D&D? Are the chromatic bad? Are the metallic good? Do you have adventures where you go off and fight dragons?
So my thinking is, I've not 100% decided on this yet, on the one hand, you have your regular dragons in the world, your chromatics, your metallics, and they're going about their business as they normally would. I think I'd probably mix up the alignment thing and just have them being them, much more individual. But then at the same time, there is almost a progenitor, if you will, of each of those different ones, and those are the ones that act as the masks. And obviously the regular dragons are there just in case they ever need to pull them all together and get something done.
So it'd be really cool to see the second version of the world where it's all the same creation myth, but the people, the races that live in the world know that dragons are the god. And so instead of just because in typical D&D, there's Tiamat and there's Bahamut.
Yeah.
And there's, I forget the name of the gem dragon god, the ruby dragon in the Ruby Citadel.
I think it's quite a complicated name I couldn't pronounce anyway.
Yeah, I forget right now. Really cool. You should go look it up. They're like the dragon gods, but they're not gods, but they kind of are gods. And it's like a bit kind of wishy-washy and up to the DM. It would be really cool where the people in the world just know that the gods are dragons and they worship the dragons. That'd be such a different world. Could you imagine a dragon ruling over a city?
That would be pretty cool. Has happened in Faerun, by the way.
Yes, it has.
But one of my plot points I was thinking of for the world when the players are in it is that essentially somebody has actually come to this realization, and they're essentially a new prophet, and they're going around preaching this new religion, which then makes conflicts because the old entrenched order doesn't like that. And then there's a whole other
holy inquisitions going on.
Yeah, but then there's this whole other thing behind that about why this guy's a prophet, and basically one of the progenitor dragons is trying to basically ascend above himself.
So here's a question: does that tie into your plot at all that you would write for the story that the characters play through? The players,
No.
I mean.
I like that going on. They could pick up on it if they wanted.
I like that.
Yeah.
I kind of kick myself that I wrote mine into my story, but then I'm kind of glad that I did, because when the Esteroth campaign comes to a close, if it ever comes to a close, I don't know. Who knows? Then the next game will happen with the players knowing this stuff about the world because they've experienced it firsthand. But at the same time, I kind of also want to just start a new campaign in Idria or in one of the many other places and have you just playing out from a different point of view. And like the convergence still happens, but I'd probably set it, because the convergence happens every 26 years. So I'd set it like just after a convergence or something. So it's not going to happen during the gameplay or something like that. Just to have a game where the creation myth is separate from the plot line.
Yeah. I think you've weaved yours in really well though, because when I've been playing in that game, I never feel like I know what the creation myth is. There's so many different things going on. There is still that element of mystery there to it.
I haven't told you all of it as well.
Yeah.
Just so you know. Like I've got it written down in like, you know how like I don't know why I'm not religious at all. I don't know why I keep bringing up the Bible and Christianity, but you know how like the Bible's broken down into Old Testament, New Testament, etc. My creation myth is like, it's the birth of the world, the creation of the hierarchy, the rise of the Dark Deva, then the Stone of Archon, and like it breaks down into all these different sections. So yeah, there's stuff I haven't let slip yet, and you are the only one that takes notes. So
yeah, I think one thing to note as well is if you're writing your own world and you're doing that kind of thing, approach it with broad strokes. Don't get into the nitty gritty of absolutely everything that happened. Literally, this was the name of the event. This is what it's about. This was the result. Like,
I find that really difficult. Like, and I mean, if you've listened to my episode about Van Richten's the other day, there's me sitting there saying, well, they've told us about the city, but they've not told me exactly what the population is and exactly what the city trades in and out of, because I like knowing. I like knowing that nitty gritty. So when I have to not know that, I really struggle with that.
Yeah, it's good to know the nitty gritty. And if you're making a world just because you want to make a world and you're not beholden to any deadlines for players or playing a session, that's fine. But if you're making a world to play in and you don't want to have to spend 5 years getting it ready, for those less important things to the player's actual adventure at the time, you take those broad strokes to them, and then if needed, go back and be specific. Or even better, your players can fill in the specific for you as needed.
Yeah, absolutely. James, it's at this point where I try and sell my guest something from the sponsors, but to be honest, I know that you are obsessed with the Dice Dungeon. So instead, I'm going to show you my beautiful new dice. I have been waiting for my set of Planeshard Shadowfell dice for a while, because I said to Ben, put a set aside for me. I'm going to be ordering a book from you when it comes out, so I just send them at the same time. So I made myself wait, and oh my God, James. Have you seen the picture online of these?
I have.
Okay. And they are pretty, aren't they?
I already love them.
They're gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
It does not do it justice. In person, these things are gorgeous. They are resin dice, and they are the epitome of the word of I always forget this word. Premium. They are the epitome of premium. They are gorgeous. But here's the thing. I got them the other day and I said to Phoebe, look how pretty these dice are. And she took one in her hand and said, oh, they're not heavy, because she always gets scared about rolling metal dice because they're so heavy. So if you want some really beautiful dice, which might I add have been rolling incredibly well.
They have.
If you're rolling poorly, buy yourself a new set of dice. You just need some new mojo in your life. Then go and check out the Planeshard series. I feel like there's 4 sets now. I think they added one recently.
Yes, I think when I had a look yesterday and was thinking about purchasing, I saw 4.
Well, if, like James, you are thinking about getting yourself some dice, you can use the code WeSpeakCommon on checkout to get yourself 10% off your entire order. So the more you spend, the more you save.
Yeah.
They're so good, and there's new tins. They are bigger, nicer, flatter tins, which doesn't sound like much, but I have every iteration of Dice Dungeon tin at this point, and I think these might be my favorite. This tin might be my favorite tin because it's like I'm trying to think of something that's a similar size to this, but it's a good grip in your hand. It's like, oh yeah,
deck of cards.
It's a bit bigger than a deck of cards. I mean, I've got my Taroka deck here, and it's just a little bit bigger than the Taroka deck. So it's like it's a good feel in your hand. Speaking of which, as well, of course, if you are creating a creation myth, then, well, I mean, creative writing is kind of expected, isn't it? If you are looking for inspiration, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, for creating your own myth, head over to Describe. That's DSCRYB.com. They have loads of really good, written by professionals, box texts for your world. So if you're thinking, well, this advice is good from Ben and James, but I don't have anything to hook onto to start writing my creation myth around. I don't have a gorgeous city because I can't write a good description. Go and have a look at Describe. They will definitely have something for you on there that will, if not fit it perfectly, be able to inspire you to adjust it slightly and make your own. If you want to get the full collection of over 1,500 scenes that grows every week, then you need a subscription, but there are a load of free ones available. If you do go for a subscription, you get 10% off every single month by using the code COMMON on checkout. Okay. I would be amiss, James, if I did not say that your creation myth reminds me a lot of the Eberron creation myth. Did you take any inspiration from it?
I did, as I liked the idea of the dragons being powerful creatures because I love dragons and just in real life we view them that way. But I sort of mashed up a bit from the from Faerun as well with one of the explanations of Asmodeus' origin.
Which one?
The one where he is the super evil of two original cosmic beings. They basically end up fighting, and then the reason he's in Nessus right at the bottom is because he plummeted down and his
wings got torn off in the battle, didn't they?
Yeah, and he's there now consuming atheists up until he's strong enough to rise again and do whatever.
Consuming atheists is the best phrase ever. I just spend my immortal life consuming non-believers.
That's how you end up in Nessus.
I think that's how that, because I love the fact that, so I always refer to my Forgotten Realms as my Forgotten Realms because it's my version of it that I run my campaigns in, but I should really refer to it as our Forgotten Realms because we share a campaign setting now.
Yeah.
And that's the one we went for Asmodeus, because I think it is the coolest too. It's very good.
I just like this idea of him being this amazing, like, godlike figure that can just turn up and be like, no, shut up.
Yeah. He was, I've always considered, this is the thing, like, they're like, oh, Asmodeus, leader of the devils, archdevil. I'm like, no, Asmodeus is a god.
Yeah.
He's like, he is all powerful. Weren't they like winged snake-like beings?
So, yeah, something like that. Kind of like the Coatls a little bit. That's how I imagine it.
Yeah, me too. I forget who he was fighting. I think they died.
I'm not sure if they did die.
We should actually talk about our Forgotten Realms because I have recently killed a god.
Oh.
It won't affect you, don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I'm like, which one?
Kelmorv, the god of death, no longer exists.
That would make sense.
Which is built around, how I've rewritten TOA. Yeah.
Don't worry, Ben. I've been playing with gods as well that you're not aware of. So.
Oh, Jesus Christ! But this is good. This is good because, like, this is the thing. We have this existed world that bubbles and moves, and so because we play in each other games, I think I said this to you the other day. I was like, I'm so thankful that you and I appreciate the same aspects of Forgotten Realms and of the lore, and so that like, I think the way I described it was I often come up with an idea of a campaign, but when I come up with the idea, I think of it as like, oh, how cool would it be to be this character playing through this campaign where all of this stuff happens? And I'm like, well, I could ask someone to run that for me, but it wouldn't be the same. And I can't run it for myself. But I know that if I come to you and say, I really want a campaign where I do this, and this is my character, I can trust you to build something that I will absolutely adore and love. So if you're just changing stuff and I'm just changing stuff, and then you play in my campaign or I play in yours, and something happens and you go, oh, that's going to affect stuff that I've been doing.
Yeah.
Then we get to have a conversation about stuff that we didn't know was going on in the world. It's like actual gods who can't focus on everything.
Yeah. Oh. No, it has been really fun, that dual world building. But we've already spoken about that once.
We have. You should go back and listen to it. So when you took inspiration, so for those of you who don't know, the Eberron world is 3 dragon gods who create the world, and then one of them, the quote unquote evil one, and you'll see that a lot in creation myth. There's often a good side and a bad side, and I just as habit, especially in my own world, tend to have that it's all grey. There is no good and bad. It's not that plain white, especially because that feeds into Joe's character and his belief in the world and the gods. So it's a good theme to have for him. But the bad dragon fights the good dragons. Just to make it really dumbed down and simple, one of them dies and becomes the dragon shards in the sky. One of them becomes the Underdark, which is the evil one, and one of them becomes the Earth Eberron, becomes the barrier. That's really cool. Which part of the Faerunian lore did you take?
So I'll be taking a lot of the similar names of gods for those masks. And other than that and the Asmodeus thing, I might just try and leave it there in terms of what I take from there, because obviously I'm trying to have it where my gods aren't too involved.
So when you took inspiration in that sense, how did you make sure that you were changing it enough to be your creation myth and not too similar to those two?
I just went with it where I'd like to see it go. And whilst there are similar elements, obviously there's things that I do differently that I think are cool or better or just more interesting that I'd change. It's very much about tailoring it to what I like and what I think my players, like yourself, would also like, which I think is key.
Yeah. So for me, I didn't take any inspiration for the story because I kind of already knew where I was going with it. But my higher divine pantheon has a mix of, there are Faerunian gods in there because I wanted a mix of gods that would be familiar to the players, but also I wanted there to be some non-familiar sounding names so that it felt new and unique. So you've got, for example, I've just pulled up the charter. You've got, for example, Asmodeus, god of law in the hells. You've got Helm, god of protection, Gond, god of craft, stuff like that. And I've used Saloon for the god of the moon and things like that. But I have taken... Oh, and for example, the big bad evil guy is, I think you already know who it is. Not the big bad evil guy, the one true evil god is a god that you will recognize the name of. And I think in the game you've heard whispers of it.
Possibly, not sure. I'd have to, all of my are dead.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
No.
But yeah, so I think it's literally been said once, so I'm not going to say it. But it's a god you'd recognize for that reason. But then I've got gods that aren't from like Faerun. So for example, I've got a couple of my own creation. Like the mother is the god of the wild world.
Yeah.
And then her savior is god of the children. She's the god who stripped her divinity to create the Azamar. And then I've used gods from a mix of different places. So I wanted to use gods from Orith because Vecna exists, and he has his own. He has a new creation for him, but then which gets up to a point, and then it changes, and his standard law takes place. And things happen, and then it changes towards the end again. So you've got like Vecna, Umberlee, Talos, Shar, Palor. Bakom is the god of magic now.
Never heard that name, I don't think.
Exactly. And like I've changed up some of the symbols too. So Becom symbol is an eye within a pentagram, and Becom is the god of magic. So when you went to cast in the old decrepit tower, you heard a lot about Becom in his notes and research, because that's who they praise. Eldaf, god of peace, like they all have their own, and then I've got hierarchies and things for them. So I took inspiration there from both Faerun and Orith, and then mixed in my own sprinkling of like different things to fit into my creation myth to make sure that there was a little bit of uniqueness in there, as well as a bit of familiarity, so that I can bring any player, regardless of whether they've played in the Esteroth campaign or not, into the world of Ka. Like maybe if I set a campaign in Balatesh, for example, I can have whole new players who've never been to Ka before, and they can feel a little bit of similarity and have a bit of their feet in the ground. And I think that's the key to taking inspiration, is to have familiarity that you then add your own stuff on top of, rather than just ripping it off, for example.
Yeah. People tend not to appreciate a straight rip off, but also at the same time don't like things that are radically different to what they're used to. So I think taking that approach of some familiarity with a sprinkling of uniqueness is really the right way to go about it.
And it's like, we always say there are cliches for a reason.
Yeah.
Like if your creation myth runs on a cliche, that's not a rip-off. It's because it's that familiarity and that familiar feeling that players will get from that. So don't think of it in the sense of like, oh, I don't know, like if you listen to this and you've gone, oh, James's creation story of the dragons is really cool, I want to do that, but I don't want to do the same thing, because my players might listen to the podcast and then they'll realize that I've just copied James's world. Well then, okay, so what's the bit that you like? Did you like that it was dragons, or did you like that for example, all of the gods in the world aren't gods and they're actually another being or another set of beings? Take that one element and then build your own myth around it to use. Like that's if you want to rip James off. You probably wouldn't want to rip me off because mine's shit, but
I won't go that far. It's decent.
I go for a love and hate relationship with my own creations every 5 bloody days.
Yeah.
I love it for a week and then I hate it for a week.
Yeah, I have noticed that. Whereas mine, I make them and then forget about them and go, oh yeah, I was doing that.
Oh God, no, I do that too. I have rewritten all of the like creation myth and the gods and the worlds, and I've got all the nations. I've got the map half done to the sense that I've half finished the height map. I need to then like populate it.
Yeah.
But then I've stopped. So like I've got the history between Esteroth and Idria rewritten and stuff like that, but I need to like go through and rewrite the cities and Esteroth. Like I haven't even finished that continent yet.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing that months ago. I haven't come back to it yet. So
I think
I'd like to though. I'd like to like finish it as like a little campaign guide and stick it up on the Patreon at some point. It'd be a long way off though.
I think as well, one thing I'm particularly lucky with my job and the things that I study, like history and secondarily religion, that really does sort of feed into this sort of world building thing. And I think that's one thing to say as well. If you really have no idea where to start, go look at history. Go look at some real life religions, whether current or ones that don't exist anymore, and you can take things from them, because the reason current religions, you could say, are so popular to some degree is because they have some kind of chord with the people that follow them. And if you can figure out what that is and put that into your own world, then it'll make it that little bit more real.
The other thing as well is if you I had a long period of time where I was like, I don't want to get into the religions in the worlds. It's like, I don't really care about the gods. That's not why, like, I don't play clerics and paladins. I don't really like do that stuff. That's not what I like in D&D. I like the magic and the monsters. And so I never really wanted to look into it. And then eventually I was like, no, okay, I should look into this now. And I should like, because I'm making my world, or I'm doing this, or I'm playing a paladin or a cultist or something. And then I started to get into it. So if you're in that kind of zone where you're like, I don't really want to look up on the gods, I don't want to read all that stuff, then find something that you do know about that you can seed into your creation myth. So maybe you love Inc. or you work in a big corporation and you understand how business works, write a creation myth where the Pantheon works like a fucking hostile takeover of a business. That would be so cool. That'd be so bizarre and different and a bit weird.
That would be really weird, but amazing at the same time.
Do you know what I mean? Like, could you imagine that? Like, oh yeah, sorry, corporates come in. They want us to just change that forest there, just put a lake in the middle before we let the mortal races go.
You've not met your quota for followers this month. You've been demoted.
Yeah, oh my god, could you imagine? That's like a different version of the angelic hierarchy. Like, oh, you haven't brought in enough prayers. You need or enough gold from your worshippers. You need to. You're now an angel. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
that'd be so cool.
That is actually that's sort of how it works anyway. But that's cool.
Well, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, religion is just a big corporation. Or maybe maybe you really. I had something else that you could make a creation myth off of. I don't know. It could be anything. It could literally be anything. If there's something that you like and you're passionate about, you can probably make a creation myth around it. It just happens that for us, D&D is what we're passionate about, so we make creation myths around the existing D&D creation myths.
We will sit and troll wikis for several hours and not get bored.
No, I do get fatigue, but I don't get bored. I push through it. If let's say, for example, I'm trying to look around my room for something that's not D&D related, and there isn't anything. Hang on, there's got to be something here.
I have Pokemon things.
Hang on. Okay, let's say you really like computer games and coding. Well, you can create a creation myth where the whole world's a simulation. Boom. Like, that's different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that's not typical D&D, but it doesn't have to be, does it? You can find something that you're passionate about and create a creation myth around that for sure. I think we've got a bit off track.
Probably, but we tend to do so.
I always feel like these topics and topics like this feel a bit like they're like, oh, well, you just kind of do it.
Yeah.
Which always used to annoy me, because whenever I listen to podcasts or watch videos on YouTube or whatever, when I was first starting, I was like, whenever people said, oh, well, you just do it. Like, you just have to create something. I'd be like, that's not helpful. So I genuinely hope, like Phoebe the other day when we did the podcast together, she said, oh, you shat on yourself at the end there. You said, oh, I don't think this has been helpful. But what I mean by that is, like, I hope that we've said in the right things to inspire you to see that it isn't as hard as it is. You've just got to really think about it for a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all D&D is. It's thinking really hard about things.
Yeah. I think as well with our kind of topic, it might seem like we've gone off track, but in a way you have followed our thought stream, which got us to the point where we made our thing. So the reason we then went off about polytheistic and monotheistic things, it's relevant. It's something to consider that you might not have thought to consider or would have done, but not thought you were doing so.
Yeah, and I think like if it wasn't us having this conversation, it was someone else having a conversation where their world wasn't built around their religions, they'd go off on a different tangent. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to say. If you find the thing in your world that's going to be important, like for me, it's the hierarchy of the Celestians, and for you, it's the fact that it's actually the dragons in control of the other religions, then you'll be able to build your myth around that thing that's important, and you'll have your own tangents. It's hard. It's not like whenever we sit down and we talk about like, oh, let's make an adventure, or oh, we've got this idea for this one character, let's make a little quick thing, and I can be like, oh, he's a paladin and he loves chicken, so he keeps chickens and he praises the god chicken, and I just come up with ideas, and some of them are stupid like that. I don't know where that came from. And some of them are don't put that in your games, don't do that. And some of them are really good or like really like horror themed or whatever. It's easy to come up with those kind of ideas because they're small scale, but when you're talking about the creation of a world, it's hard to just be like, this is what I'm saying, I'm looking around my room for something to inspire me and I can't just think of something because it's so grand. So you do just kind of have to think really hard about it for a long time until you find that sprinkle of an idea. And it might not even feel like an idea, but it will be something that you go, I like that. and then you think hard about that one thing, and eventually you start to pull it apart and link ideas to it and threads to it. But yeah, my takeaway tip before we disappear is start with a snapshot of what you want the world to look like when the players are in it, and work backwards. That's what works for me.
Yeah, just remember, it wouldn't be fun if it was so easy.
Yeah. I mean, I used to hate when people said that. Like, oh God, oh, well, it's not worth it if it's easy. I'd be like, well, I want it to be easy. But now, do you know what? You're right. Because you get the fulfillment from it.
It gives it meaning as well, that you've put that effort in and then you've got this thing at the end. So even if it feels like you're pouring tons of effort in and getting nowhere, once you do eventually get there, it pays off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Cool. Well, thank you, James. I think that's been quite fun, and I really. When are you going to finish your world? I want to play in it.
Well, when my job allows me, so probably it's summertime.
Summertime's not that far away.
Well, that's the time I'll have to sit and do it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be playing it in a couple of years' time then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, in the meantime, we have Descent to go through. And actually, before we disappear, it's worth saying I'm going to be pulling you back in a couple of times in the near future, because we think we're pretty close to the end of Descent into Avernus.
We are so close.
We're like maybe 2 sessions, maybe 3.
Yeah, I can taste it. The ashes.
And like, oh my God, we were so close to TPKing. Oh, I'm still like, my heart is like.
You were literally like a turn off. Had Grace failed that saving throw, that's it.
We only had to survive. Well, we had to survive 6 rounds.
Yeah, six round, and
I went down on round 5.
Yeah. No,
I went down on round 4, got back up, and then went down on round 5.
Yeah, because Grace did the polymorph thingy, which didn't matter because Thingy just...
Yeah, she polymorphed me. Yeah. And I actually died, like flat out died, not death saves. I died.
Mm-hmm.
And then so did Wesley.
Yep.
And then round 6 came round. Grace managed to make a saving throw that she survived, and the Deus Machina came in, which we were waiting for. Yeah.
I did realise as well, your eye should have grown back, but I've decided for plot purposes it didn't because it's cool.
No, I've decided that Claff, when he gets back to Baldur's Gate, is going to get a for Ragnarok style eye patch that's like just the eye patch.
Right. That's assuming you get back.
Shush. Don't you dare. He will get back. I mean, he has promised Drell and Eruvian that if things go badly, he will banish them so that they can go home. But I mean, it's character development, but come the fight, who knows? He might revert to his old evil ways. We'll see.
It's the Claff we all know and love.
He is. If he gets back, he's gonna get his armor done up, get his adamantine half plate like cleaned up and looking good. He's gonna get the shield cleaned up and looking good. He's gonna get a nice snazzy eye patch. He's gonna do up the Siren of the Styx so that it's ready for sailing to Waterdeep for that meeting. He's going to do some actual work as a duke and as leader of the Knights of the Shield. Make sure that they are. I need to write out like a whole plan for them.
Yeah.
And then, do you know what I really want to do?
Go on.
You know how summonable armor is a thing? We're really off track now, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You know how summonable armor is an item? I kind of want. So he's Hexblade Paladin, right? So he can summon his pact weapon in and out as an action.
Oh my God! You basically want to Banff in a full-on battle suit.
I want to enchant the armor, and I don't know if you'd allow it because the shield is already a magic item, but I'd love to also enchant the shield and somehow link them. Like, even if it takes up 2 attunement slots, because the shield already takes up 1, so the armor would take up another one.
Yeah.
But I wanna chain them so that he can be doing his dukely duties in his good-looking, proper garb, his official-looking snazzy suit, and then when Mind Flayers ascend from the ground underneath Baldur's Gate, he can just bamf in everything in one action and be ready to go. That's a dream. I don't know how broken it is.
We'd figure that out because it's so cool. I'd have to let it happen, Ben.
Oh, okay, well that's good. That's good. So he wants to do that. But then I've got to decide what adventure he wants to go on, because once Galgath is in charge of Avernus, he has to then put the work in Baldur's Gate to make it a good city. So he's going to spend a few years doing that. But then he needs to. What's his next step? He wants to become like Lord of Hell, basically. He wants to be Asmodeus's champion, really. Yeah. But he wouldn't tell Galgath that.
I mean, where do you go after defeating an Archdevil, Ben? That is the question.
I think we scale Celestia and we take the fight to the gods.
Just full on hostile takeover at that point.
Do you know what he would do? Genuinely, yeah, hostile takeover. What he would genuinely do is focus his efforts on winning the Blood War. That would be his next thing, because he's gonna make Baldur's Gate. Like, he wants his plan on the material plane. So his plan overall is to rule in tandem with his partner, the Archduke of Avernus, will be the Archduke.
Yeah.
So that both Avernus and Baldur's Gate receive power and become beautiful places. And Baldur's Gate becomes the jewel of the Sword Coast instead of Water's Deep. That's his plan. Waterdeep. But at the same time, he has been worshipping the Hidden Lord and giving the Hidden Lord power, right?
Yeah.
And wants to ascend, wants to help the Hidden Lord ascend. He's become his champion. Now, at this point, they're partners. So he's now thinking, okay, how do I get to the point where I overtake the Hidden Lord and he starts giving me power? Like, he wants to grow and become even stronger. But then he's also like, well, I want to make Baldur's Gate beautiful, but I also want to make the Hells a good place, because his opinion is that everyone is judging the devils. Yeah. The devils are just, they are law. That's what they are. They have rules and they follow them. So he wants to make Avernus the wonderful green lush land that it once was, which means ending the Blood War, stopping the disgusting, destructive curse of the demons. So I guess that's his next step. End the Blood War.
I mean, you have literally.
Easier said than done.
You have literally just given me the idea, Ben, and I've just wrote it down. So it's going to annoy you when you edit this, because it's probably going to show up on my thing. But I've now wrote down what Claff's next adventure will be.
What level does it go to?
It will have to go to 20.
Okay, good. However, being Ben, I know that ending the Blood War basically destroys the cosmic balance, and Mordenkainen's going to want to kill me, but hey, maybe I'll kill him. We'll see.
Who knows?
Oh, I don't want to kill him. Ben doesn't want to kill him because Ben wants him to be alive in our world. but maybe I'll come to some agreement. Also, I think Claaf will hire Orlo, because Orlo, when he gets back to Baldur's Gate, he's going to hear about the mission that Orlo went on with the Mind Flayers.
Yeah.
Because it killed. Well, the only two dukes that were left in the city are now dead. So him and Alder are going to get back and have to hire two more dukes.
Yeah.
Which instantly puts him above those two, which he's happy about. He won't be like the new kid. He's already proven himself by bringing back a city from hell. Or he will be, hopefully. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So he'll hire Orlo to investigate and follow the colony further down underground beneath the city. Like, hopefully there's like some tunnel or something. You might have to write that in. If there's a tunnel that connects further down into the Underdark.
Don't you worry, Ben. I already had that idea at the end of that session.
Beautiful. So he's going to hire Orlo, so we can have a scene where it's just me talking to myself while you adjudicate it. It's just I'm talking to. I literally was in the car the other day driving to pick Phoebe up from work, and I was talking to myself, but switching from Clav to Orlo. Like, I'm not ashamed to tell you that. So we'll have that conversation. So then that springboards Orlo's adventure into the Underdark.
Yeah.
And I need to rewrite Orlo a bit. I need to give him a bit more purpose, which I think I have. I think I'm making him more of an occultist. So he's going to go off and do that. But that means, because Orlo will want to know about the Hells, he'll want to hear all about that. He'll be like, tell me everything about your adventure.
Orlo will know where the Hand of Vecna is. Fantastic.
When Claaf gets to the point where he says, oh yeah, and I met this Dragonborn with this gangly hand on his arm that like cursed me, Orlo will be like, what do you mean a gangly hand? He'll be like, oh, it's bony and dead, and he needs to eat the soul of a unicorn to survive. I mean, look, if we get to a point, this is your fault, James, because Claaf is now missing an eye. If we get to the point where Orlo has the Hand of Vecna and Claaf has the Eye of Vecna, then I'll be happy.
That would actually be really cool.
It'd be really cool.
And then you'd
That
have
does mean-
people coming after you just to slaughter you both because you're horrifyingly evil.
Yeah. And they'd both have to. But this is the thing. Kla'ath is so charismatic, and at that point will have so much sway within Baldur's Gate that he is basically like hiding, like he'll be really good at hiding the fact that he's evil. Whereas, excuse me, I'm getting choked up thinking about it. Orlo will just be straight up evil at that point. He will just be bad, and he will.
And all of Joe's predictions will come true.
If Orlo does go, if this is the thing, Orlo's an occultist. He walks the line, right? And if he goes down the dark path, he will go. Like if he so much as steps a toe off of that line, he does not have the self-control to not follow it through.
Yeah.
And will forsake all of his friends and everything.
You've already been threatened about what happens if you go that way as well.
By who?
Your friends.
Oh, from Waterdeep.
From the dreams, Ben. Friends in your dreams.
Oh, Ioun, yeah. I want to get Orlo to the point where he's so strong he can just kill them all with a snap of his fingers.
Yeah.
His Vecna fingers.
Yeah, good luck with that.
This is the thing, though. We need to stop because we're running over. I'm having too much fun now. But he won't be able to kill Archon and get the hand. So we should just. Do you know what? We should just do a whole series where we just talk about your campaign and Kla'ath and all that, and tell everyone the story because it's a pretty fucking good story. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's that thing where we're on the same wavelength and we just make the most craziest and coolest stories involving cosmic entities and stuff.
Here's the thing, though, and I am going to say this on the podcast, and then we're going to end because I need this moment, this phrase, this thing I'm going to say to be etched in life and time. When Descent finishes and Kla'ath is free of that campaign, and Orlo is obviously floating at the moment because his next campaign hasn't begun. What is a one-on-one session that might become a 1-on-3 if I get some people involved has to be a game we do every other week like any other game because I need to play it.
Yes.
I need to do it. I need to play Orlo's story. I need to continue Kla'ath's. So it has to become a standard game, not one that we just do here and there.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And on that note, now that we've talked for a good 15 minutes about nothing that anybody gives a shit about, let's end this episode. James, thank you for joining me. The point before we went down this tangent is that you will be returning because we're going to be talking about Descent and doing a breakdown of that adventure.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. That was the
point.
That's how we got to where we are. Yeah.
Honest.
We will be talking about that in an episode. And someone has requested, considering all of the Drizzt Do'Urden stuff that's going on at the moment, a Legends and Lore on Drizzt. And if there is anyone that I know who knows Drizzt as well as I, if not better, it is yourself.
I would move to show everybody the books, but this isn't being video recorded. So
yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. So we will do that, but you've told me I need to finish the book I'm on before we do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will get reading then. Thanks for sitting and talking to me, buddy. This has been fun.
Anytime, as always.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right. See you, bud.
Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.